Hello everyone. Welcome to today's session. Today, we will study Unit 11 of MED-002, Global Initiatives for Sustainable Development. In this unit, we'll explore how the world has come together to address critical environmental issues through conferences, legal frameworks, and institutional efforts. Let's begin by understanding how these initiatives took shape and why they are so important. In the early 1970s, people around the world began to realize the limits to growth and Earth's carrying capacity. For the first time, it became clear that our planet could not endlessly support uncontrolled industrial and economic expansion. Studies warned that if growth continued at its current pace, it would lead to the depletion of natural resources, which will put both people and ecosystems at risk. This led to the emergence of a global consensus on environmental protection. People around the world began to realize that environmental problems were not just local, they were a shared global challenge. In response, there was a rise of international legal declarations and agreements. These included both non-binding promises and formal treaties, helping countries work together on problems like climate change, loss of biodiversity, and pollution. Along with these legal developments came important principles like the precautionary principle and polluter pays. The precautionary principle means countries should take action to protect the environment even if the science is not 100% certain. The polluter pays principle means that those who cause damage to the environment should also pay to fix it. These ideas became key parts of international environmental law. But one of the most important ideas is sustainable development. It connects protecting the environment with human well-being and future progress. The idea is simple: we should meet our needs today without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. As these principles and agreements developed, there were talks of creating a centralized global body known as the World Environment Organization. The goal was to have a single organization to coordinate environmental efforts across the globe. However, despite all these advances, challenges persist. Because of political disagreements, inconsistent action, and limited financial and technical resources, progress has been slow. Many countries support environmental goals in principle, but actually putting them into practice is still a major challenge. In this session, we'll look at how these global efforts have changed over time. We'll also talk about the big conferences, agreements, organizations, and the challenges that are shaping our planet's future. Let's look at some key conferences that shaped how the world tackles environmental issues. They brought world leaders, scientists, and activists together and led to some landmark decisions. It started with the Stockholm Conference on the Human Environment in 1972. This was the first international gathering focused only on environmental issues. It recognized that environmental problems are deeply connected to poverty, conflict, and underdevelopment. One powerful moment came when Indian Prime Minister Indira Gandhi declared that poverty is the biggest polluter and highlighting the need to balance both economic and ecological concerns. This conference led to the creation of the United Nations Environment Programme, or UNEP, which still plays a big role in protecting the environment around the world. The conference also produced the Stockholm Declaration, outlining 26 principles for environmental preservation and an action plan with 106 recommendations. Next came the Brundtland Commission report in 1987, known as Our Common Future. It defined sustainable development as development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This has become the most widely accepted definition of sustainable development. The report also explained that economic development and environmental protection are not conflicting goals, but two sides of the same coin. Then, in 1992, the Rio Earth Summit was held in Brazil. This was the largest gathering of world leaders at the time, and it produced several monumental outcomes. The Rio Declaration, which laid out 27 principles for sustainable development. Agenda 21, a comprehensive 40-chapter action plan covering topics like poverty, consumption, and ecosystem protection. 2 binding conventions, the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC, and the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD. However, the Rio Summit also revealed a deep divide between the global north and south. Developing nations were concerned that environmental rules might slow down their growth, while richer countries wanted stronger regulation. In 1997, Rio +5 was held to assess progress. It found that poverty and environmental degradation were still getting worse, despite earlier commitments. 5 years later, the Johannesburg Summit, also known as Rio +10, aimed to speed up implementation. It led to the Johannesburg Declaration and a new plan of implementation. Some of the key topics discussed were finance, technology transfer, capacity building, and good governance. Other significant conferences included the Cairo Conference in 1994, which focused on population and development, and the Social Development Summit in 1995, which focused on human well-being, with goals like eradicating poverty, promoting employment, and ensuring equality. These conferences helped create what we now call soft law, which are non-binding but politically influential instruments that reflect shared global values. Now, let's take a look at some international agreements that help protect the environment. These include important treaties and conventions, many of which resulted from the conferences we just discussed on the previous slide. First is the Ramsar Convention, adopted in 1971 to protect wetlands, which are rich ecosystems supporting biodiversity and human livelihoods. Member states must designate at least one wetland of international importance and commit to its conservation. Next is the World Heritage Convention of 1972, which protects both cultural and natural sites around the world. Over 700 sites are protected under this, and member countries are responsible for their protection and maintenance. In 1973, CITES, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, was established to regulate the trade of over 30,000 species of animals and plants. Species are classified into 3 appendices based on their level of endangerment, with trade restrictions in place accordingly. The Bonn Convention, or CMS, focuses on migratory species like whales, birds, and marine turtles. Since these species travel across countries, so international cooperation is needed to protect them. The convention includes Appendix I species which are endangered and require strict protection, and Appendix II species which benefit from coordinated conservation efforts. Next, the Vienna Convention and its follow-up, the Montreal Protocol, which addresses ozone layer depletion. Because of these agreements, the production and use of harmful chemicals like CFCs has been significantly reduced. The Montreal Protocol is widely considered as one of the most successful environmental treaties ever. The Basel Convention, adopted in 1989, addresses the transboundary movement of hazardous waste. It was created to stop developed countries from dumping toxic waste in poorer countries. The agreement makes sure hazardous waste is managed safely and responsibly. And finally, the Convention on Biological Diversity, CBD, asks countries to protect biodiversity and share the benefits from natural resources fairly. In 2000, the Cartagena Protocol on Biosafety ensures safe handling of genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. Together, these agreements show how countries around the world share responsibility for protecting the planet. Now let's discuss the main institutions that help carry out these international environmental agreements. At the center is the United Nations Environment Programme, or UNEP. It was created in 1972 to lead environmental efforts. UNEP helps countries work together, creates new treaties, monitors the global environment, and supports governments in making and applying environmental policies. UNEP plays several roles. It helps draft international treaties, it monitors the global environment, and it supports countries in policy development and implementation. It also hosts the Global Ministerial Environment Forum, where ministers meet annually to tackle pressing issues. After the 1992 Rio Summit, the Commission on Sustainable Development, CSD, was created. It tracks progress on implementing Agenda 21 and monitors global action on sustainable development. Each international agreement has its own secretariat. These secretariats help countries work together, share best practices, and reviewing national reports. Funding is also essential. That's where the Global Environment Facility, or GEF, comes in. The GEF was formed in 1991. GEF finances environmental projects in developing countries and supports efforts in 6 key areas like biodiversity, climate change, ozone layer protection, international waters, land degradation, and persistent organic pollutants. GEF works through agencies like the UNDP, UNEP, and the World Bank, and it has funded over 1,000 projects around the world. Other supporting bodies include the IPCC, which conducts scientific assessments on climate change, and agencies like Codex Alimentarius and the International Plant Protection Convention, which set safety and quality standards. Even institutions like the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Trade Organization, WTO, also affect the environment through their economic and trade decisions. There's also increasing discussion about forming a World Environment Organization, or WEO, to improve coordination. However, many questions remain, especially about its structure, authority, and how it would relate to existing institutions. Despite these structures and commitments, major roadblocks continue to hinder global progress. Let's switch to next slide to look at a few of the most significant challenges. The first challenge is that environmental problems need quick action, but making international laws takes a long time. Building global consensus takes time and often results in weak or diluted agreements. There's also the persistent North-South divide. Developing nations are often wary that environmental rules could restrict their growth. Meanwhile, developed countries are sometimes reluctant to provide funding or technology needed for implementation. Even the core ideas we rely on, like sustainable development, can be vague. It is often unclear how to meet today's needs without harming the future. Principles like intergenerational equity or the precautionary principle are powerful, but they can be difficult to apply in ways that don't slow down innovation or progress. These ideas remain challenging to turn into clear and actionable policies. Science plays a huge role in environmental governance, but it is often dominated by richer nations. This can lead to imbalances in decision-making and the setting of standards that may not reflect the realities of the global south. Then there's also the issue of the global commons, areas like oceans, outer space and Antarctica that belong to no one, yet are everyone's responsibility. Protecting these areas is difficult because no single nation has jurisdiction. Another challenge is the free rider problem, where some countries benefit from global efforts without contributing. This discourages collective action and makes it harder for everyone else to stay motivated. Most of all, the biggest tension remains between environmental protection and economic development. Finding the balance is the main challenge of sustainable development. Let's have a quick recap of what we've covered. Environmental protection has become a global priority over the past 5 decades. From the Stockholm Conference to Rio and Johannesburg, countries have come together to address shared environmental concerns. To support this, legal instruments and multilateral environmental agreements, or MEAs, have expanded rapidly. These agreements form a strong foundation for global cooperation. We also have several global institutions in place, such as UNEP and the Global Environment Facility. While they play an important role, they continue to face challenges in coordination, funding, and enforcement. New proposals like the World Environment Organization, or WEO, aim to enhance coordination and strengthen the global response to environmental issues. However, major challenges remain, especially when it comes to implementation and ensuring equity between developed and developing nations. To move forward, we need stronger political will, fair partnerships, and long-term sustainable financing. Together, we can work toward a future that protects both people and the planet. Thank you for joining this session. In our next session, we'll cover Unit 12, Civil Societies and Community Initiatives. We'll explore key global protests like Rio, Seattle, and Geneva, the growing role of NGOs, and impactful grassroots movements in India such as Chipko, Apiko, and Narmada Bachao Andolan.